Good morning, everybody. I can't believe we've already made it to Friday. It's great to see you. I love your patience. I'm always ready, and then I'm like, oh, where's my coffee? And I get all nervous. So glad to see you. And we've got a big show today because so much is going on. We've got campaign news, we have legal news, and we have, of course, Crazy Town. I want to say one quick thing before we get too deep into the show, which is this. I have friends like my dear friend Veronica, who is the best chef on this planet. And I swear to you, we need to have a cooking show for her on YouTube. At any rate, Veronica sometimes misses the morning show, guys. And so she wonders, how do I watch it later? And she goes over to my YouTube channel and says she can't see it. So I want to let you know, if you miss a future show, or you just want to tell a friend this, that when you go over to my channel and you see the channel page, you need to look at the selection. It pre-selects to see videos. You've got to click on the word live because this is a live video, even if you're watching it later. Okay, public service announcement done. Yesterday, the biggest things in campaign news, both in terms of the Harris Walz campaign and the Trump JD Vance campaign, is a study in contrasts. Once again, Harris is bringing joy, transparency, and, to be honest, a lot of fun and good policy ideas. And Donald Trump and JD Vance are bringing, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, I guess souped up misogyny, as well as just insanity from Donald. And I would like to start with our souped up misogyny. And when I say souped up misogyny, what comes to mind isn't one of those 1950s souped up engines, but I'm thinking about, you know how when you're driving around and there's some giant big ass pickup truck with several American flags and a F Your Feelings or a Donald Trump sticker, and they always have a really loud engine because, I don't know, some people tell me it's compensating for something, but I don't fully understand what that's about. At any rate, JD Vance is the equivalent. JD Vance's speeches are the equivalent of that. And if you did not see this, I swear you really, really must. And so JD Vance, and I shouldn't just say JD Vance's speeches, I should say JD Vance's entire persona at this point is women hating. So let's play this in case you missed it, and see if this is going to help him attract the women who have run away from the Republican Party.
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this?
Oh, wait, I need to back up and explain. JD Vance tweeted out this little video saying, oh, this is the Kamala Harris interview with Dana Bash, right? The very first interview that Harris and Walz have done is with CNN anchor Dana Bash. And JD Vance said, look, I spotted the interview, and here's what he played. Let's do it.
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South.
Okay, so you get the idea what's going on here. And if you, like me, grew up when, there weren't many television channels and you watched beauty pageants, people would laugh at these young women who, and it's just terrible, right? They're laughing at these young women because the reason why they're laughing is because they are not well educated themselves. This is a beautiful young woman who was obviously known for her beauty at a very young age and was probably helped into and wanted to go into these pageants and didn't spend a lot of time herself in a home that probably had maps or books or anything like that, right? And it's easy to ridicule someone like this, because you look at someone like this and you say she's blonde and she's beautiful and the way is going to be paved for her. And yet, do you not see how vulnerable that young woman looked? She didn't know what she was talking about. Probably someone said, it was probably in the 80s, talk about South Africa or talk about what have you. And she didn't really know what she was doing. And she's probably 17 or 18. At any rate, he is ridiculing, first of all, this young woman. And secondly, he is ridiculing Kamala Harris, saying that this is how ill-prepared she is for her job. I have a lot to say about this. Once again, trying to pit women against each other, objectifying young women, and yet mocking them. And, as someone said on Twitter, this is going to really, he's really going for the incel vote. Meaning these, I don't know if you know what incel means, in case you don't. It means, incel means people who are not intentionally celibate. These are the young men who, believe they're entitled to date a gorgeous woman like this, but don't even, but then resent them. And so they mock them because they cannot date them. I don't know much, again, about this psychology. It's not how my brain operates or the men that I know, but apparently it is a thing. And Kamala Harris, of course, is not a 17 or 18-year-old young girl who has been trained for beauty pageants. This is a woman who happens to be gorgeous, right? He's making, I think in some ways, J.D. Vance is making fun of the fact that she is beautiful and therefore must not be intelligent. But let's remind us that Kamala Harris is a law graduate who did pass the bar, despite what Donald Trump says. She was a prosecutor in California, became the state AG in California. In addition to that, she was the Attorney General of California. She became a senator in the U.S. Senate, and she is the Vice President of the United States, and she is a leading candidate in many states, and is likely to win the presidency. And this is what J.D. Vance does. This is what he has to say about her. But if you're feeling really angry, I think I know why you are. And I want to bring this up right here. And you might remember this. This is the speech. This is an excerpt from the speech that America Ferrera gave in the Barbie film. I'm going to pull this down right now. And you might say, why am I not actually playing the speech? Well, YouTube does not like, guys, when you play clips from movies. It's just not the way it works. So what I would like to say to you is this. I'm sure you've heard this monologue, and people said when they heard this monologue, oh, it's such a cliche that doesn't, people who hated the movie, mostly on Fox News, said that this is not what is really happening in the world in terms of women. But I want to read you a little piece of America Ferrera's speech because it describes exactly the double bind that Kamala Harris is in, and you can see J.D. Vance trying to exploit that. And let me just tell you that it is, and here we go, it is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me. Remember, she's saying this to Barbie. It kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but always be looking out for other people. I'm going to skip ahead. You have to never grow old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard. It's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but everything is your fault. I am just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us. And if all of that is also true for a doll, in this case, a beauty queen just representing women, then I don't even know. Okay, thank you. This is all bullshit. And this is exactly what the Trump campaign and J.D. Vance is trying to do to women. Okay? But it is not just J.D. Vance. It is also Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem, you may know, the governor of South Dakota, who has transformed herself physically into a carbon copy of Melania to some degree. And she is also the person who thought she was going to be the VP candidate, but just took it a step too far. She has also fallen into the same trap and doesn't even see it. So she is attacking other women, and it's really sad. Let's take a look at what she said.
Don't you just find it all very strange? This is a party that's all about optics, and the optics surrounding Kamala Harris are just way off here, Governor.
Oh, they're terrible. You know, looking at this from a woman's perspective, it's just so disappointing. There are all kinds of women who take on tough challenges in their day-to-day lives. They're balancing budgets, they're running businesses, raising their families. They've done difficult things. And then we have a woman who wants to be the leader of the free world, and she can't get through an interview without being propped up by a man. I mean, it's insulting. It really is. So I hope that everybody recognizes that Tim is there to help prop her up. And if it gets awkward or she starts giggling or looking awkward,
I've heard enough of that. I have heard enough of that. Let's keep in mind that we don't need to fight against each other. Come on. Come on, Governor Rome. You are the governor of a state. You can do better than this. You can do better than this. Moreover, right, this is someone who was trying to curry favor with Donald Trump, right, trying to be his vice president, and was bragging about how she actually went out and shot a disobedient dog and threw him into a ditch, right? What's that about, right? Come on now. Okay, so that's what's happening over with J.D. Vance, but don't feel so bad. Here's how he is actually received when he's not on Twitter, when he is not hiding behind a keyboard, when he is not a keyboard warrior. Look what happens to him. He doesn't do so well.
Now, President Trump and I are proud to be the most pro-worker Republican ticket.
Let me just stop. He's in front of the firefighters union. I believe that's what IAFF is. So let's take a listen again to that. Sorry.
Now, President Trump and I are proud to be the most pro-worker Republican ticket in history. And I want to talk about why we're fighting for working people, why we're going to fight for unions and non-union alike.
You hear the booing? What happens next is he said, well, I guess there's some haters in the audience. Okay, not great when union workers are booing you. They have J.D. Vance's number and they have Donald Trump's number. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the big news of the day, which is Kamala Harris last night sat down yesterday, it went on air last night, sat down for her first interview with a major news outlet, and this was CNN's Dana Bash. And she had her VP candidate, Tim Walz, join her. And I think it's insulting to suggest that she did that because she is a woman, because I think, as you have all heard at this point, that this is common. Let's look at this. My friend George Conway was angry because after the interview was aired, of course, you have the CNN commentators and you have Scott Jennings up there suggesting the same thing Kristi Noem did, which is that Kamala Harris can't hold her own and she needed a man sitting beside her. And so Conway said, Jackass. It's ridiculous that CNN pays Scott Jennings for such drivel. It's also stupid because people who would otherwise watch the network turn him off. Now, here is a photo, and there are others. These are just two examples. Here's Donald Trump being interviewed side by side with his VP. I think you might recognize this guy. His name is Mike Pence, and you may know him. Probably most, you might know him best for the chant, "Hang Mike Pence," that Donald Trump was not trying to shut down, but was encouraging from his crowd. As you will also know, Mike Pence is also famous for being engaged in a debate while there was a fly on his head. And the fly, as you know, went viral and was the most interesting thing about what Mike Pence had to say. Besides there, you can also see people going on air with their VP candidates as well. You see Mitt Romney, and I'm not sure why he is in that actual photo with, and I'm totally spacing on the guy who was considered, is it Paul Ryan? I think that is Paul Ryan, who everyone said was such a genius. This happens all the time. So let's just start with that. Now, let's get into a few highlights from the interview. And I will say overall, it was fine. I think Harris did great. I think Dana Bash did what she needed to do by beginning the interview with all of the kinds of MAGA questions and allegations that have been flying at Kamala Harris, because now that this interview is done, we don't have to have these questions asked before. My favorite thing that Harris responded to was this. At one point early on, Dana Bash asked Kamala Harris, "What's the story about people saying that you're not really black?" And I mean, it's kind of bold to ask that, but Kamala Harris's response was an almost verbatim, "That's the same old toxic politics that we're used to." And then Harris said, "Next question." Like that, next question. And then Bash did not let go right away. She said, "Is that it?" And Harris said, "That's it." My goodness, that is the way to shut down something stupid. There is no reason why Harris should even get into her racial identity. It's not worth her time. That is how it's done. So I want to now show you a few things. We get the traditional "what would you do on day one" in the White House. And of course, it's quite a contrast to Donald Trump, who said on day one he would become a dictator. Let's listen to what Harris had to say to that question.
Do day one. Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families. For example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
Okay, now, I love that. That's a day one question. It's really clear. Do you see the emphasis is on economics and the emphasis is on families? Tim Walz had a lot to emphasize around families too. Let's listen to him.
If it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
I just, one other question.
Okay, so I love that. He accomplished a lot there. He wasn't in that interview to prop up Kamala Harris. He's there to address his own issues, what he means on the ticket. Remember, the vice president is important because he will step in for the president should they become incapacitated or even worse. So this is critical. And, you know, he's hitting on two things. He loves his family. He will defend him. There are these ridiculous attacks on them. I don't think I've ever heard Donald Trump say he loves his family. That would be too weak for him to say that. And also, of course, Donald has attacked the military repeatedly. Now, let's look at more policy. I only got a couple more of these so you can see. And then we are going to move to something really fun and then Crazy Town.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So now, as I travel in the state of Georgia and around our country, the number of seniors that have benefited. I was in Nevada recently, a grandmother who showed me her receipts. And before we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, she was paying hundreds of dollars, up to thousands of dollars a month for her insulin. She's not doing that anymore.
Okay, I love that. She is what Harris is doing right there is talking about economic issues, taking credit for what the Biden-Harris presidency has done, and explained why it took a while after COVID to take these steps. She's also, secondly, made clear that it was their administration, not Donald Trump's, who accomplished this, because Donald Trump has been lying at rallies saying that he did this. And the third thing that she did is she brought it down to real people. Not just that she named someone that we could relate to who has benefited, but she actually spoke with that person. And we have seen the way Harris looks at people and speaks with them. They are not props. She looks people in the eyes and hears them. She does not do a awkward thumbs up, right? It is not a photo op. It is a conversation. I want to point out one other thing before I show one more clip from the interview, which is you may have noticed that Harris turns out to be shorter. It's a fact than Tim Walz. And there are actually people criticizing some media folks on Twitter, the fact that they were not at the same height. Now, you may think this is weird if you haven't done television, because obviously they aren't the same height. So if you sit in a chair, you are going to look shorter than someone taller than you. That is a fact. That is just how it works. But when you're on a television news set, you know how when you see people around a glass table, we are you're on like a high stool, and they make it so the top of everyone's head is even. It looks better on a news set. It's easier for the camera to keep everybody in the frame that way. You may not notice this until you are on air. People like me, I'm not super short, I'm not super tall, I'm probably around Kamala Harris's height. They literally have a step stool available when I have to climb up into a chair when I'm on shows like Morning Joe, because people like Willie Geist are super tall. That's how it's done. But I admire the fact that they didn't use props like that. This is who they are. Tim Walz is taller than Kamala Harris. Do you think that really matters? I don't. But what I think would be weird is if they artificially change that. This is a sit-down interview. This is not in a television studio. This is real. Now, speaking of real, Harris really is about unity and not division. And she was asked a question about whether she would include a Republican in her cabinet. I love her answer.
Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone in mind?
Yes, I would. No one in particular in mind. We got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse. But I would. I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
So let me tell you why I think that's important too. If you are a member of a political party and you have friends you've worked for years, and you think that maybe one of the ideas they're putting forward could be different, it's really hard to criticize them, I imagine, in front of the president, because it would undermine them. And even if you wanted to tweak or criticize or say, there's a better way, it might be hard. And then you would lose political capital on something that might be much more important for the American people, in your view. Having a Republican there who doesn't need to draw on those loyalty points, perhaps, would allow conversations to come up in the room that might not otherwise happen. Now, let's be clear. It was not all a love fest. I know there are things people were not happy that they heard in terms of policy. There was some stuff she said on fracking that may have disappointed people. And I don't want to really get into that right now because, this is about democracy. You're not going to get everything you want in a candidate, but you're going to get a hell of a lot more, obviously, with the Harris-Walz team. Now, one last thing before Crazy Town. Let's look at what was happening in Savannah. In Savannah yesterday, as you know, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are doing something that has not been done in ages, since the 90s. No political candidate has visited Savannah. They are taking bus tours through rural Georgia because why not? Voters are there and Georgia is in play. But beyond that, when you are going to govern for the entire country, you should meet people throughout the entire country. I want you to see what happened when she hit the stage and how these rallies are turning into mini conventions. The vibes are excellent. Oops, I better remove that because whenever they play Beyonce, YouTube gets mad at me. So what I actually have to do at the back end, you guys, is strip out the Beyonce song and learn and leave the cheering. Kind of like when my mic died and I stripped out those sections. It has to be done. YouTube doesn't like it. But I love Beyonce. And so what I do is I have that song on my playlist and I just play it all day in my head. Okay, so you know now, since we're drawing contrasts, and I have not yet talked about what happened to Donald Trump yesterday. Crazy Town is the contrast. Yesterday, Donald Trump thought he was going to a rally. No one else did. Everyone else thought it was a town hall being led by Tulsi Gabbard. But Donald Trump was at a town hall. And does it go without saying that I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump? And then I think he is not just a bad person and selfish, and that he is a rapist, because we know that, and that he is a fraudster and an inveterate con artist and a racist. I think you know all of this. But even I, who thought he could not go lower or more unhinged. I mean, actually, that's not true. I think he can go lower and more unhinged. Let me be truthful. But I did not expect what I saw yesterday. So guys, let's take a look. The first thing I want to show you is how he is confused about where he is.
I finished and I figured I was going to come here and we were going to make a speech. I had a speech all set for you. I was ready. Now, they said, sir, you're actually doing a town hall. I said, oh, nobody told me that. I said, who's doing it? They said, Tulsi. I said, well, that's at least good news. I've been a fan of hers for a long time, I have to tell you. So I didn't even know I'm in the plane.
Let's just back up. Lest you have forgotten, but I am old enough to remember that Tulsi Gabbard was a candidate in the race, in the nomination for president in the Democratic Party. Many of us did not trust her, and here she is, not just supporting and endorsing Donald Trump, but being part of his town hall. Let's continue on this madness.
And I'm looking over some material, and we're going to give you a hell of a speech tonight. We were set to give you one hell of a speech. They said, no, sir, it's a town hall. I said, why doesn't somebody tell me this stuff?
Okay, what? I find it not just highly unlikely, but impossible that no one told him it was a town hall. But let's just imagine that. Let me ask you, do you think someone is equipped to be president if they are either lying about this or can't remember something as simple? I don't think so. But here is the craziest part, and I think we're going to have to listen to this a couple of times. This is not edited. This is the real deal. And this is Donald Trump, who said he prepared an excellent speech, who is answering some kind of question at the town hall, and I really have no idea what is going on in his brain. Let's play it.
You can look at bacon and some of these products, and some people don't eat bacon anymore. And we are going to get the energy prices down. When we get energy down, you know, this was caused by their horrible energy wind. They want wind all over the place. But when it doesn't blow, we have a little problem.
I really need to play that again. This is not edited. We moved from people not eating bacon to wind energy. Okay, let's do this again because I need your help. Let's one more time.
You take a look at bacon and some of these products, and some people don't eat bacon anymore. And we are going to get the energy prices down. When we get energy down, you know, this was caused by their horrible energy wind. They want wind all over the place. But when it doesn't blow, we have a little problem.
It's hard to thread that, you know, the fact that people aren't eating bacon. I mean, I don't eat bacon as a pescatarian and someone who keeps kosher. But I'm not really sure the relationship between people not eating bacon and wind energy. Also, can we just talk about the fact that energy can be stored and wheeled around, and that if it's not, the wind isn't blowing, it's not like your television turns off. I don't know how many times he has had one-on-one meetings with people like Elon Musk and others who, even if we do not like their political policies or think they're oligarchs and kind of maniacs themselves, I think know a little bit more about technology. And it seems to me that people have told him repeatedly about how wind energy works, but just like his town hall, he can't keep it in his head. And so I think maybe the new cognitive test is person, bacon, prices, wind. Or it's some kind of Mad Libs like we used to play, and those were the 4 words he knew that he needed to put in the speech. And I will tell you, I would vote for that teenage beauty queen over Donald Trump in a heartbeat. And let me tell you, Kamala Harris may be beautiful, but she is not an uneducated, although sweet, teenage beauty queen. She is the vice president of the United States. She is entirely ready for this moment. And if we do everything we can, she can win. And I want to thank you for joining me today. I know it's Friday, so we have no more Morning Jen until Monday. But remember, at 4 p.m., tomorrow, Saturday, we have Morning Jen live because it's called Weekend Jen. So I will catch you up on every single thing that you would otherwise miss if we didn't have a weekend show. See you all soon, and thanks for listening.